Hello and welcome to this Glass Tire Artist Check-In. This is a series we're doing during the coronavirus, during a time when we can't talk to people face to face. Today we're checking in with formerly Austin, currently sometimes Houston-based artist, photographer, whatever you want to call him, Bucky Miller. Welcome, Bucky.
Hey Brandon. How you
Thanks.
doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Good.
Yeah,
What are you
yeah,
gonna
yeah.
do?
I'm, yeah, yeah. Could be worse.
It could be worse.
Yeah.
So, Bucky, you and I first met each other back right after your senior year at UT.
Yes.
Or I'm sorry, not your senior year, but you were in the UT MFA program after your third year, after you graduated.
Yeah, that is right.
Yeah.
Yes.
You had a show at the Umlauf Sculpture Garden and Museum, and it was so. I mean, I feel like to me that show really kind of like described your practice, or it was a good introduction into what the things that you do, because it was like part sculpture, part photography, weird installations, tricks,
Yeah.
games. Like it had a map component. Like, tell us a little about your work for those of us that may not be familiar. You've shown in Austin, you've shown in Houston at Jonathan Hobson Gallery. You had a show on the lawn at CAM. You
Mm-hmm.
have a diverse body of what you do.
Sure. Well, it grows out of photography. I think of it mostly under the umbrella of photography, although it's constantly trying to sneak out in different directions. I think probably the shows that you mentioned, the thing that's kind of the common thread throughout all of them is continuous reoccurrence of these certain animal characters that pop up in different ways, and how these sort of shifty animals can kind of guide viewers through this experience of the work. But that's maybe something that's still happening, maybe something that's not happening as much anymore.
I feel like one of the you just had a really fantastic like Instagram pop-up pseudo one-day residency takeover, whatever you want to call it, of the CAMS, the Contemporary Art Museum Houston's Instagram. There's still the animal component. I mean, if anything is to be said about your photographs, you don't ever photograph people, really.
That's almost completely true.
Yeah.
I think they sneak in on occasion, but I'm not a portrait artist. I don't gravitate towards them with the photographs but I think that overall the animals, there some people have suggested that maybe the animals are a stand-in for people, and I don't think that's quite what it is. I think that they're doing their own thing. I think that they're being animals, and I think that there's kind of a normal human tendency to project human onto animals when we see them presented in these ways. And
well, that's just because we're super narcissistic and we want to see ourselves everywhere.
sure. Well, and I'm completely willing to lean into that as well. But I don't want. I've always thought of the animals more of as a guide than as what the work was actually about. They're always going to be present until they're not, and we can kind of learn from them what the terrain is that we're investigating, whether it's photographs or something that's more built or a video piece or whatever.
So if the animals aren't what it's about, what is it about?
Oh gosh. Well, it's always something different, right?
Yeah.
I mean, there's not. So let's take the show at CAM, for example, because that one was maybe the most recent of the ones you mentioned, and I think that it was a relatively simple show. It was called Two Raccoons. It was about seeing a raccoon. it wasn't about the raccoon, but it was about the experience of seeing one and seeing one through a camera, and how that experience of seeing the animal with a camera was so different than how you might just, with your eyeballs. Yeah, so I mean, there's something that I wrote actually about that, about how the raccoon and the camera actually function in some ways closer together than a human would with a camera or with a raccoon, and that's just that neither of them really depends on language. So if I photograph a raccoon, the camera doesn't know it's a raccoon. Meanwhile, the raccoon seeing me photograph it doesn't know what I'm doing.
It doesn't know what you're doing. It doesn't care what you're doing. It might be a little curious, but like grand scheme, it doesn't affect its life.
But it understands what I'm doing so much more than I understand what it's doing. But the camera can kind of break that down a little bit. Through photographing it, you get a little closer to that sort of, that animal presence, maybe. I hate that term. But just that sort of, that seeing without language, that thinking in a way that breaks down language into something, or breaks down the world into something that's not so dependent on language.
Is that kind of the same direction that you take in other pieces? Like you're involved, you have a piece in the glass tower auction that we have coming up. And that piece is completely, it's devoid of like living things. I mean animals.
That picture is from a body of work. It's a little bit older. It's kind of growing out of that same time that you were talking about, where I was really paying attention to a lot of dogs. And seen from the right angle, that photograph, it's relatively canine. It's sort of entering an animal into the world that doesn't really exist. There's the orange chain coming down from the wall that's connecting to this sort of mass of foam sitting around in a parking garage in a way that makes it look just as if it was a leash connecting to the collar of a dog. And then the foam kind of has this sort of semi-canine form to it, to where it kind of is in the process of becoming a dog. So I've thought about that one. It originally was paired with another photograph that was of a dog kind of becoming a cloud. And it's gone on to lead its own life away from that picture. I don't love that picture as much as I once did.
Yeah, I feel like your work kind of, I don't want to pigeonhole it, but it tends towards either, like some of your photographs that I like the best are ones that kind of focus in on something and you can't really tell what's happening in them.
Sure.
Whether it's a focus in or a pull back so much that kind of what the true subject isn't really legible just because the pullback is so far away. So it's either a hyper close-up or a hyper distance shot. Versus your pieces where it's kind of really much about like the scene, like an overall tableau of something.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. I think, working with photographs, a lot of times you need those different parts, because I tend to like photography better when it works as a group. I think that it lends itself so well to a serial format, to a book format, that you kind of want to move through those different types of shots, or at least I do, in order to keep things interesting, and create a different rhythm through the work, as if you're almost watching a film or something. But I think that what you're describing comes back to sort of what I was saying about the resistance to language, or the willingness to shed language. I want pictures that don't rely on us being able to give words to them. So even if you can recognize the object in the photograph, you know, you see in the picture in the auction, for example, that you're in this parking garage, there's foam and there's chain. I want that to be on some level an experience that doesn't require language and doesn't really even benefit from it. And I think that's why the animals come up so much, is because that's just how they live.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is
your
funny.
Your photos would be hard to do like a visual analysis of, like just like a purely not a visual analysis. What am I thinking of? Just like an art history basic like visual. Is it visual analysis? Like a description of what the piece is.
Yeah.
Like when you have to go to a museum and do it to like a 14th century painting. It's like, well, the lower third has da da da. Your photographs would be weird to do that too.
Well, you can do it, but it won't get you anywhere.
Yeah.
You can totally do it. You know, you can totally work your way through it, but the experience of describing it, hopefully, is going to be very different than the experience of actually seeing it. And it's not even something as simple as just, you know, oh, a picture is worth 1,000 words or something, because it's, you know, kind of simple. But it's more just, I want to try and get close to that experience that you have in the world sometimes of before you've processed the language for something. When you first encounter something unusual, and it happens a lot in art, but it can happen in the rest of the world as well, where there's a split second of recognition where it's like, there's something happening here in front of me that's noteworthy in one way. It's making me feel a way.
Mm-hmm.
But even if it takes just a millisecond, and I've had arguments with people about this, but I believe that even if it takes just like a millisecond to form the language for what you're saying, that little span of time exists as a place where something really incredible happens, where you're seeing this thing just as seeing the thing without starting to describe it for yourself.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And that's, you know, if a photograph can hold you in that, I think that's really brilliant. I know it can, because I think other people's photographs do. I wouldn't ever say that, you know.
You're not going to become your own critic.
Well, I don't think that my experience of mine is as valid as other people's necessarily, but oh God, I mean, my favorite photographs are all ones that happen.
Mm-hmm. So what, if you make a lot of work about like your surroundings, like when I know during your time in Austin, a lot of your photographs were taken in like within walking distance of your house. What are you working on right now, because you are cooped up in your house?
Sure. I mean, it's been tough. I have been photographing a little bit around my neighborhood. I just moved to a new place, where I'll be for a while, actually. And I've been photographing a little bit around here, but you know, I'm being very cautious about when I'm out and trying not to. It's hard because there are a lot of pedestrians. So it's hard to find the time to do it. But I think more than anything, I've been focusing on other elements of my practice. I was working on something new right before this all went down that I was really excited about, and I want to return to it, because I don't think I knew at the time, but now kind of looking back at the material that I've gathered, I feel like I'm starting to make a Western, which seems fun. But you know, that's on hold for now. other than that, I've been putting a lot of energy into things that can just exist digitally. I've actually been spending a lot of time on Instagram writing about other people's photographs. There was a thing going around Instagram where people were posting on their story, oh, if you reply to this with the fire emoji, I will post my favorite photograph of yours. And I was like, that seems fun, but what if I wrote about it instead? So I've been writing these little 2 or 3 paragraph blurbs about people's photographs, but I've had them start sending me the gorilla emoji instead of the fire emoji because I was tired of the fire emoji. And that's been actually really rewarding, and it's been a way to write more. I like writing, and it's something that I don't always have immediate outlets for. So that's been nice. And then, yeah, I mean, just trying to figure out how to be an artist on Instagram in a way that's not just documenting work that exists in the world and put and it's like using Instagram as the studio, using Instagram as the exhibition space.
Yeah, being conscious about it. Like, you know, I'm a firm subscriber to the fact that, like, whatever medium you choose to make your art, or in this case, in a situation like this, it's like whatever medium you use to get your work out there kind of is just as essential a choice and as impactful a choice about what it's saying as the work itself or the message of the work. So, like, actually being conscious about how to use Instagram is like a thing that some people have done in the past, but is a lot more essential now.
Oh, it's super essential now, and it's something that I've thought about before. It's something that I've spent a lot of, or not a lot of time, but a little time kind of playing around with. I think, you know, it's obviously a different platform, but it's obviously a part of photography. Like, to me, it seems definitely like a conversation that needs to be acknowledged in contemporary photography, because it's the new vernacular, essentially, and so it's quite necessary. But I haven't really leaned all the way into it, and I think maybe starting with that cam takeover was the first time that I really dedicated time to it. And this morning I started making a demo reel of commercials for different companies. And
it's very Chris Burden of you.
Oh yeah. No, I was just making coffee this morning. I was like, what if I made a commercial? And, but you know, maybe I can get a gig doing commercial work for Kellogg's.
Well, we'll follow. What's your Instagram?
It's Bucky Miller.
Just your name.
One word. Yeah.
We'll tell anyone who's made it to the end of this to check out your Instagram, because I guess that's what you're doing right now.
I like right now that Instagram can just be the gallery in the studio, and I don't need those sorts of institutions to mediate the content and all. It's just like me dumping stuff right on the platform, and people can engage with it if they want to. It's really nice. It's been really fun. I've had some strange interactions already, just positive, overwhelmingly positive, but just unexpected. Just been talking to people that I don't normally talk to. This has been great too.
Yeah, this has been good. It's nice talking to you, Bucky.
Yeah, you as well. You as well. Stay sane over there. Stay healthy.
You too. Keep doing stuff.
Of course.
Okay. Take care.
Bye.